Well, hi everybody, welcome to Afterburner. I'm Bill Whittle. You know what I absolutely detest in a person? Name dropping. To me, it's just a tawdry way for small-minded, vain, insignificant little people to try to artificially raise their stature by trying to bask in the reflected glory of people of real achievement. You know, I was having this exact same conversation a few days ago at lunch with my good friend, four-time Academy Award nominee and Best Actor Oscar winner, John Voight. We hang out together all the time and talk politics. We're like this. Anyway, the conversation turned to Israel, of which he is a dedicated and vocal supporter. John pointed out something fascinating, namely, that from many places in Israel, you can see with your own eyes what's normally invisible, the political boundary between one nation and another. From a hill in Israel, you can look down and see where someone drew a line on the land with a ruler. On one side, barren and essentially worthless, and on the other, irrigated, cultivated, and very productive. Why is that? Well, I think it's because of the fact that while Israel is made up of Jews from all over the earth, it is in fact a Western nation. It thinks like a Western nation. Their neighbors look out over the desert and see a desert. But the Western mind of the Israelis looks out over the desert and sees an orchard. You know, the best description I ever heard of this phenomenon I read in the novel The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which was, of course, the foundation for the tremendous 1957 film starring Alec Guinness. It was written by a Frenchman named Pierre Bouel, and it's the story of British prisoners who are forced to build a bridge out in the jungle by their Japanese captors, and who, as a sign of their resistance, decide to build a better bridge than the Japanese ever could. The Japanese, Bouel writes, would force their soldiers to lash together some bamboo, head out into the jungle, and jury-rig something that looked kind of like a bridge, which would, of course, collapse, and sooner rather than later. Then they just go and do it again. But the British, the Westerners, well, they did something remarkable. Before they moved the first shovelful of dirt in the real world, they built the bridge in their minds. That means they tested the sandy riverbed to see how much weight it could support and how deep the main piles would have to be driven. They determined how much raw materials would be needed and estimated how many men it would take and with what specific tasks based on their pre-war skills. They made blueprints and debated and critiqued them, then redrew them better, and so on and so on. They built the bridge in their minds, and they finished it in their minds down to the last nail before they ever took a step toward the jungle. That's Western thinking. And after the war, the conquered Japanese went on to become more Western than the victorious Western allies, and they are now indisputably some of, if not the best engineers in the world. Western success is predicated on a mental process that I, after some thought, have broken down into 5 stages. Now, first, obviously, is imagination, seeing the bridge, or the orchard, or the iPad, or the auto repair shop in your mind. Second is ambition, the desire, the burning desire to make that dream a reality. Third comes skill, having or acquiring the physical and or mental tools you need to make it happen. Fourth is work ethic, being willing to do hours and hours and hours or weeks and days or years of extra work, more than other people without a vision of a bridge in their mind to actually get it done. And finally, fifth is perseverance, that indispensable quality of getting up when you're knocked down, and even more importantly, of continuing the boring, grinding details that have to be finished long after the initial excitement has worn off. Which brings me to the Occupy Wall Street movement. Now, a few of those people, maybe 1%, let's say, are legitimately opposing bank bailouts, corporate welfare, misuse of the Fed, and all that stuff, things that I and most conservatives have supported for years and would support now with them, if it weren't for all of the rape, assault, anti-Semitism, anarchy, death to capitalism signs, and temper tantrum lawlessness that makes up the other 99%. And by the way, you know who's responsible for spoiling these young people? I am. My generation, that's who. We'll get to that next time. So, how do these 5 steps of success apply to these angry, spoiled, upscale college kids that are at least the vanguard of the Occupy movement? Well, they do have imagination. They imagine all the things they want for themselves, a nice car, a good house, all of that. But they don't seem to have any imagination about doing something bigger than working for someone who pays well and allows them time for social networking. They have imagination, but no vision. You know, the high school grad named Bob, working at a Jiffy Lube, who has in his mind a vision of Bob's Auto Repair, has the kind of imagination that these college grads never dreamed of. Second is ambition. I don't see any ambition in those people at all. What I see is entitlement, which, if you really think about it, is the polar opposite of ambition. Bob has more ambition than the entire movement put together. Third comes skill. You know, all a degree in peace studies or gay history or feminist theory is really good for is ripping off the next generation of gullible young minds as a professor of these useless non-skills. Bob, the high school grad, well, he can fix your car. You're lost without your car. Bob is useful. Fourth comes work. I'm sorry. Sorry. You know, Bob does more real, hard, dirty, grinding, actual work than most of these college kids have done in their entire lives. And finally, perseverance. Well, it takes perseverance to stay out in the cold in these rape and violence-filled Obamavilles, I'll give him that. My friend Ben Shapiro interviewed one of these people who said he wanted to change the world. Ben asked him, how do you change the world sitting in a park all day? The guy was outraged. He said he's never worked so hard in his life. He's right. Now, Bob, well, he works hard every day. And one day, Bob will ask his uncle for 25 grand to open Bob's Auto Repair. His uncle won't have that kind of cash, but he'll go into savings and lend it to him anyway, and he'll get it all back too, with interest. Bob's Auto Repair is going to be a big success. Hey, who knows? Maybe it'll become a national franchise. Then Bob can be one of those rich, fat cat one-percenters who the OWS crowd wants to nail to the wall so they can steal all of his hard-earned money. What do I say to that?